Greetings, Loreseekers, and one of the various guests joining us from one of the various platforms I've shared this on. First things first, if you have not yet watched the Rise of Skywalker or any of the Mandalorian and you care about such things, please switch this video off now. Right, that being said, you either have seen them or you do not care about spoilers. So, I've been thinking the past couple of days, since the Rise of Skywalker aired, and we had a few confirmations on quite a lot of the leaks and various other things. And the question I have now is, where does Star Wars go from here? Because they keep on saying this is the end of the franchise, the end of the Skywalker saga, which, to be honest, I've made it not any secret that I do not like the sequel trilogy. And the thing is, the only thing to do with the Skywalkers this trilogy has is that Luke turns up at the end of one and dies in the second, and then turns up as a ghost in the last one. Other than that, it has nothing to do with the Skywalkers. Okay, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, is technically a member of the Skywalker blood, but he's kind of gone away from that and gone down the path of his grandfather, so it doesn't really count. Especially when you can see that, you know, that is one thing I did enjoy, the salt in Palpatine's eyes when he saw Kylo, and right before he used his little yeet manoeuvre on him. Alright, you could argue saying that it has to do with all the original cast, fine, but they were really misused in this, and my overall feelings on the sequel trilogy is that it is a poor attempt at storytelling. Now, if you enjoyed it, fair play to you, but in my own opinion, it's poor storytelling. It is essentially bad fan fiction, and I should know, I've written pretty bad fan fiction in my time, and I'm selling it with the brand label of Star Wars in order to make a quick buck. Now, if Disney really want to keep the longevity of this cash cow, they need to actually feed it and maintain it instead of, you know, letting it starve to death. All the while they're sitting there going, give me my money. Now, on that note, I do think they need to start maintaining it properly, and that does mean if they want to get full brand recognition, they're going to need to start paying the clause in their contract with George his fair share. Quite frankly, if they did that to start with, they would have made a hell of a lot more money than they've made from the loss of these movies. Now, as I've said, where do I think Star Wars should go from here? Well, to be honest, if they want to continue the story after the mess they left themselves with the end of the sequel trilogy, and honestly, the plot in the third movie probably could have been stretched out on all three of the movies, instead of wasting it in jamming it all into the last one like they did. What they should do now is, firstly, the hyperskip technology, you know what I mean. Have that just get lost in a black hole somewhere, because that completely breaks the narrative of the Star Wars universe. It causes a hell of a lot of problems lore-wise. Have them completely forget about the Sith homeworld, because that once again causes not only canon conflicts in if it was to be integrated with Legends, but their own expanded universe, and that's something that has been winding me up, because the thing about the EU is it had been going over 30 years, and the majority of the problems with it you could ignore or forget or work into the story, and it could be explained away quite easily. That, in my opinion, is a testament to the writers who worked on every bit of it, and that even includes some of the ridiculous stuff like bloody Star Crusher, for example. But the Disney canon has been going 5 years, and they have irreparable plot holes within their universe that just makes a mockery of what Star Wars has stood for, in my opinion. Now, there's a reason why I'm explaining this. Now, there's a reason why I've shared this on the EU Reddit page as well as the various other ones, because the way I see this going forward is a way that you could actually bring the fan base back together. Now, there's still going to be some fans who don't like it, and that's their opinion. I know there's some fans who don't like The Mandalorian because they think it is too Wild Westy and a bit lazy on their point of view. That's a fair analogy, but I actually enjoyed it because it updates some of the old Wild West tropes, and this is essentially what you'd have with a bounty hunter series. and a vague bit of The Mandalorian, but that will probably be its own separate video. Now, it's been a good example of that they can make good TV shows and the cast and crew on that show really care about what they're doing. Even just some of the finite details, like going down to the dirty armour of the stormtroopers, as there's been a real breakdown in discipline. Those soldiers haven't been cleaning and maintaining their armour until, you know, something happens and actual stormtroopers turn up with white gleaming armour along with death troopers, and you know the ante has been upped. Now, so back to what I was saying, so perhaps 10 years after the end of the Rise of Skywalker, and instead of focusing on, say, a movie, maybe doing a television series, is they've proven they can do this. So, the premise for this would be that a former student of Luke Skywalker's would decide to come out of hiding, and this would be a journey of him attempting to rebuild the Jedi Order. He would be travelling around trying to piece together the lore of the Jedi, as well as gathering Force-sensitive students. Now, if you want to tie it to the Rise of Skywalker, or you just want to completely forget about it, you can do that one of two ways. Either making no mention to Rey, or you have it that he approaches her to ask to start training new Jedi, and she either refuses, or she sends him a message declining, but she sends him the books that she stole from the tree in the Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, the Last Jedi. A lot of you may have missed that. They're actually in the drawer in the Millennium Falcon when Finn is trying to find something. It's not lost on this lizard. And so this would be the story of a character who is attempting to train a bunch of students as he's travelling around the galaxy. Now, because I want this character to be canon, I would like and hope that this character would be named Kyle Katarn. Perhaps, you know, changing the letter with a C. Because, you know, Disney don't want to pay George. Although, to be fair, they should pay George. The second series I'm thinking of is you'd have a lot of Imperials and First Order warlords left after the end of the Rise of Skywalker. So this would be prime candidate to take some inspiration from the Imperial Civil War era of the Legends material, and have it that each First Order, Final Order, I'm going to keep switching between the two. You know what, no, I'm just going to continue calling them the Imperials because it'll make things a lot easier. So after Palpatine has been defeated again, you could have it that each warlord is now attempting to crave their own little empires out of the galaxy. You'd have some ditching the more advanced technology and building older styles of ships and different patterns based on the resources they have. Like there was one Moff who, after the fall of the Empire, ditched building Victory 2 and Imperial class Star Destroyers and went back to building Acclamators. Now the idea of this was quantity over quality, so they could use the several smaller ships to overwhelm bigger ships and take them down, especially seeing as these littler ships would require less crew. It means you could crew more of them as opposed to the crew size of an Imperial class Star Destroyer. In this, you would have it that you follow one young admiral named Natasha Darla. Now, those of you who know what I'm referencing here, this wouldn't be the same character. Perhaps, if we wanted to, it would be, say, the great-granddaughter of somebody who was the pupil of Grand Moff Tarkin, just to give it a bit of connection to the original Empire and also to that character in Legends. And it would be her attempts to try and unify what remains of the Order and the Imperials into one cohesive unit. And this would mean that you actually get to see this character do some pretty ruthless things, and it'd be interesting. It'd sort of be like early seasons of Game of Thrones in space, with politicking in various battles and feints and all sorts of things. It'd be an idea if you wanted to carry it forward, especially if you wanted to show that not all of the Order / Imperials were evil. Some of them really were mishandled. Now, seeing as this would be a state of the galaxy that's in a great deal of turmoil, this could also be a candidate for another faction to re-emerge, but not as the New Republic. As you know, the New Republic would hopefully have learned its lesson from having a set. Well, to be fair, it was a rotating government and only one single fleet. So what you'd see is a more militarised New Republic. But I'd like to see maybe it being called something else, as it's gone for a radical shift. Now, the New Republic in the Disney canon actually has a treaty of what remains with the Empire, so I would naturally assume they'd have become the Imperial Remnant. So this new faction, I'd perhaps see the better parts of what remained of the original Empire and the New Republic forming together to create a new galactic power known as the Galactic Alliance. Now, this is a reference to the Galactic Alliance of Free Alliances from Legends, but this new one could be, you know, not a bad guy, not a good guy, using the ideals of both factions, at least the better ideals of both factions, to establish some new order and new democracy. Now, this could mean that you have like a head of state, chief of state, if you will, and then you could have an imperial originated supreme commander of the military forces. Now, not necessarily making that as, you know, another series on its own. Maybe doing it as part of the Civil War faction. Yeah, and having this go on the same. It would mean that you can make references to both the Disney and the Legends canon, but also giving a shot in the arm into Disney Star Wars of something new. Because, quite frankly, they keep banking on nostalgia, and that's not really worked for them, has it? Now, we already have the Mandalorian, but what I'd propose next is doing another series known as something as the Smugglers Alliance. You could have it as well that this smuggling faction does do crossovers with the various other shows, because the smuggler will work for someone who pays him the most, but he won't, you know, do bounty hunting or stuff like that. He's essentially providing supply and demand to the various factions as this little bit of history is unfolding. And you could even use this as potentially a bit for a new faction that comes in that means they all eventually have to work together. I don't know, something like maybe a technological plague, an entire armada of droids left over from the Eternal Throne, or even maybe something like the Starforge. The idea there is that you have the sky's the limit. You have a lot of things you could look into. You could even do the Vong if you wanted to, but to be fair, as much as I'd love the Vong to be in canon, I think they should stay away from that to start with, because they wouldn't live up to it. Maybe build into that future. You have a shadowy force that adds agents throughout the galaxy and they start spreading their influence, and you eventually build into that going forward with this idea of doing various shows, but don't do that straight away. Like, you rush in too much, you are going to ruin stuff. You've got to do what you did with the Marvel franchise. You've got to build it up over time, because I know there's some people who've had issues with Infinity War and other things like that, but in terms of storytelling, they did develop that quite well. It made sense. Alright, it's still set so it would be pandered towards children, so there is a bit of cheesiness in there, but it works. It works. And now, if they had done that with Star Wars, I think they would have done a pretty damn good job. But unfortunately, we've had the mess we've been left with. So, like I say, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Share with me your ideas. Share with me what you think, and let's just get a discussion going. I might try and reach out to some of the people in the fandom menace and get a conversation with them going. We'll see. Because to be honest, I've tried to stay away from the two sides that have been going on with Star Wars, because, well, I have friends on both sides of the argument, and I do enjoy debates, and so I will talk to both sides about the argument. Granted, a lot of the time I have been on the side of, I think Disney is mishandling Star Wars, but I've not seen so far to go far as some of the fandom menace have. I respect what they've done, they're now having an effect, and I didn't see fit that they needed my help, but that may change in the future. But yes, let me know what you think down in the comments down below. Loreseekers, if you'd like to perhaps leave a like, a comment, or share it around. Those of you who are new and would like to join the Loreseekers, hit that subscribe button, and if you didn't like any of this or you have some criticism, down in the comments, we'll debate it out. And obviously a dislike. And I just really hope that they do actually try to take better care of the cash cow they've bought and abused. Because, like many here, I could best describe that I have let my love of Star Wars devour a piece of my soul. I own most of the books and the games, and a fair few number of the comics, and yeah, I'm just rambling at this point. It does make me a little bit sad to see what they have done to the potential gold mine they had, and they've just basically tried to chase platinum and it turned out to be nothing. Anyway, I'm rambling now. Alright, like I said, as I stated before, and as always, take care, have a good day, and may the Lore Keepers ever be in your favour.